Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here. What is the name of that episode actually? Bell of Doom. Okay, that makes sense. Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today I'm going to be reviewing the final part of the Massacre, Bell of Doom. So, another classic Who story to cross off the list of ones I haven't seen. I think I only have 3 left. Ooh. I enjoyed this one. It's interesting because the climax happens, I'd say, a little over halfway through. Some of the stuff that happened in part 3, I kind of figured wouldn't happen in part 4. I was kind of surprised they happened in part 3. So it's interesting to see part 4 kind of reaching the climax where the king has, the Queen Mother has managed to convince the king to sign the order. And we learn about, of course, with Bartholomew's day coming, that there's going to be a slaughter, and seeing the Doctor turn up. It's nice to have Hartnell back in this episode because I really enjoy Hartnell's performance as the Doctor. He's always so good as the first Doctor. Just the mannerisms he does with his speech patterns, his body language too. You don't get that as much, of course, with the visuals missing, but just his speech patterns I always enjoy. My dear, oh yes, of course. I like that. It's just very endearing. So having him back, especially as the Doctor in this episode, really bumps it up for me. I really enjoy that a lot. And how he sends, once the Doctor realizes what day it is and he realizes it's about to happen, how he sends Anne away. Now, you can make the argument where it's different in the book. In the book, he sends Anne to England, which of course makes it a stronger connection of her and Dodo being related. Here, he just sends her home. But I like to think it's because the Doctor, being a Time Lord, sometimes you feel like he just gets those hunches about things, like he knows. Sometimes he's not even sure why he knows, but he knows. He's kind of time sensitive. I think he knew what he was doing when he sent Anne home. I think him sending her home is what caused her to survive and Dodo to, I don't think it's a coincidence the TARDIS ran into Dodo right afterwards. I think the TARDIS did that purposely. And I like that little headcanon in my head about that, of him sending Anne away, which, clears her out for the episode. And then, of course, us getting the talk when the main kind of martial character for the Catholic side learns that not only are the people on his list going to get slaughtered, but the Queen Mother wants basically riots to happen. She wants the Catholics of Paris to turn up, and how even the Marshal thinks that might be a little too far, but even he's like, tomorrow Paris will be alive in tears of blood, and how he seems even a bit remorseful that it's just too much killing. Although he does convince the Queen Mother that to not let the prince die. He's like, no, that'll cause a religious war. You can't do that. And of course, the Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve is a real thing. That's an actual historical event, which I didn't realize until I was reading the novelization. I did a little research on it. So once again, classic Doctor Who teaching children's historical lessons, which is one of the things the show was invented to do. And then it shows, it spends a couple of minutes kind of showing graphical depictions of the massacre with music behind it, showing what looks like, old school, ancient pictures of the slaughter with some of the images of the Protestant characters we've seen, like the Admiral and Gaston and all them, and knowing that they didn't survive, which the book does that too, but the book does it much better. But it's still pretty graphic here to see it on the show. Like, I almost wanted to skip forward through it because I'm like, man, it just keeps going on with these pictures. And then the last, I'd say at least 10 minutes or so, are more dedicated to, meeting Dodo and Stephen being angry, because of course Stephen is rightfully angry at the Doctor about not saving Anne, to the point where he's like, wherever we land next, I'm out. I'm getting out. Because he's furious. He just thinks the Doctor let her die and that he has a disregard for life, whereas the Doctor, whether consciously or subconsciously, knows he did the right thing. And then, of course, Stephen leaves. And we get that wonderful speech from Hartnell where he doesn't quite seem to know what to do. And I wish the visuals to that speech survived. I've always heard that episode 4 has a great speech from Hartnell, right up there with his Dalek Invasion of Earth speech. I've never heard it before, and it's not really in the novel. He does have some good speeches, the first Doctor does, in the novelization, but we don't quite get that. One of which he gives actually in the novel when he's disguised as the Abbot, but we don't really get that that one in this one. We get the one here where he talks about being alone and everyone being gone and remembering Susan and Vicky and Ian and Barbara. And he talks about, you know, maybe I should go home, but I can't. And then there's a song pause where he's like, I can't. It's a really good speech, and I wish we had the visuals to go with it. It's a good performance from Hartnell. I love the fact he gets Ian's name wrong, but then corrects himself, Cheddarton. And he's like, Chesterton. It's like Hartnell did that on purpose, which I liked. It's a really good speech. And then we have Dodo run in with her more, I guess that's a Cockney, however you say that, Cockney. I'm an American, I'm not British, I don't know. But that more worker accent that she has, which I know doesn't stay long, they get her back with a more proper British accent, I think, in her next story. I think she just has that here in the Massacre, as I recall. I've read about that. It's the only reason I made note of it. And then, of course, learning her last name is Chapley, however you're supposed to pronounce her last name. I'm not French either. And how even the doctor's like, it's, you know, very possible she might be. And it's a nice little ending as he welcomes her aboard. And I like the fact that the first Doctor will never admit to kind of wanting to have company and that he doesn't want to be alone. But the fact he takes off the TARDIS with her on board without asking her permission as soon as he learns that police officers are coming towards the TARDIS, because Stephen had run back in by that point. He's just like, oh, and just takes her anyway. Although I do like her reaction of, I'm cool. No, folks, just an aunt. She don't care if I don't come back. I'm good. That's pretty cool. And who knows, again, maybe subconsciously the Doctor knew she was supposed to travel with him. Or maybe consciously he knew. Again, time sensitive. Interesting how headcanon can work with that kind of stuff. I think I like in the novelization how it bookends with the Time Lords confronting the Doctor about this incident, thinking he might have interfered, you know, broken the Time Lord's law about interference there with Anne and Dodo and all the events of the story. And it's very much implied that it happened long in the Doctor's past, like this probably isn't the first Doctor that they're talking to. It does not give specifics of which version of the Doctor the Time Lords are interviewing that in the bookend pieces. I picture it as the 7th Doctor because that just, it works for me for it to be the 7th Doctor. And how they're like, well, what about Anne? And she has the last name as Dodo. And he's like, well, I didn't know. And they might not be related at all. And he talks about how in his mind he's picturing Anne and Dodo and how they look exactly alike. And his, you know, he pictures them looking exactly alike. Basically in his mind going, yeah, I know they're related. It's real. That's a really neat little piece in the novelization. But I enjoyed the episode. Again, episodes 3 and 4 really gave some time featuring with those guest casts. The guy playing the Marshal's doing a good job. The guy playing the King is doing a good job. Ooh, the Queen Mother is, ooh, she's an oily little snake. The actress playing her is playing that well. And even the guy playing the Admiral and Gaston and Nicholas, they're all doing good jobs. I like that. So we get time with them and the guest cast, and it's a shame that so many of them get slaughtered, sadly. Because, you know, this was very much still in the phase when the Doctor can't change history. It's just, you know, he's got that non-interference policy. But I liked it. As I talked a lot about in part 3 about how different the novelization is from the actual televised episodes. I don't really want to rehash all of that here. I just check out the part 3 video. But it is. It really is. The book is written, of course, by the same person who wrote the original scripts for this. But those scripts were heavily edited, 1, because Hartnell was on holiday for episode 2, 2, for budget and time constraints, I'm sure. But his novelization he pulls from his earlier drafts, and there's so much more to it. There's so much more meat on the bone. There's so much more stuff going on. The Doctor is in it a lot more. The Abbot's in it a lot more. The Doctor is impersonating the Abbot a bit. They keep missing each other, which is kind of funny. The Doctor keeps having a lot of close calls. They actually do meet at the end. The Abbot's death is expanded on more and why it happens. There's just so much more depth to a lot of the guest characters too. It's fleshed out. Watching the TV version, the televised version, after reading the novel, the televised version feels like an omnibus version. It feels like a Tales of the TARDIS cut down, with a lot of little details cut out, or sometimes entire subplots cut out, like in the Day of the Daleks omnibus, where the Dalek human, the human who runs things for the Daleks in the future, his redemption arc's cut completely out of that. So this feels like that. The televised version feels like an omnibus version, a cut down version, whereas the novelization actually feels like the full version. I would recommend the novelization over the episodes, but I recommend both. The loose cannon construction is really good. The recon is really good. It's amazing considering the situation and the circumstances of this episode that it looks as good as it does. My hat's off to them. I found it very enjoyable. If I go back to the Massacre, I would probably read the novelization again, but I do like the performances of the cast, at least from what I can hear on the audio in the story. So I want to know what you think of the Massacre. Comment down below and let's talk about it. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me on that. I want to give a shout out to Colin Coney, one of my top tier patrons. I appreciate his support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you'd like to send me to look at and review. I would love to get a copy of that Season 1 Steelbook if anyone has a spare one just lying around. I also have a link to my Amazon wishlist and my Amazon UK wishlist down there as well. Most importantly,